Welcome to this week's BitShares DEV Hangout. This recording is brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We welcome all BitShares members to join us weekly and discuss the latest news, updates, and developments. If you'd like to participate in our next meeting, then please join us live on Mumble every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Did you know the Beyond Bitcoin show now has a registered delegate? Please consider voting if you find our Hangouts and recordings useful. The delegate name to vote for is fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. Again, that's fuzzy.beyondbitcoin. The Beyond Bitcoin crew would like to send out a big thank you to everyone who's already voted and allowing us the opportunity to serve the BitShares ecosystem and our valued community members. So once again, welcome and please enjoy the show.
Welcome everybody to a Beyond Bitcoin Hangout with Bytemaster. This is a special edition one, meaning that we are doing it at a different time than normal. So we probably have some attendees here who are not used to showing up for the live Hangouts, probably listen to them. For those of you who are not familiar with how we normally run through this, we let Bytemaster open up with some comments about what's going on behind the scenes, and we open it up to community questions. Of course, I am a loudmouth community member myself, so I always have plenty of questions, but if you feel like you would like to ask one, speak up. Please be willing to take your turn and respect others, and if you are uncomfortable speaking out loud, please try to post it in the chat box below. Permi's asking, a major altcoin has said they're going to migrate to BitShares. And I'm not going to ask the other questions, guys. I'm sorry. I really don't want to pressure Bytemaster into saying something that he's not supposed to.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else other than what I said.
Can I ask about recurrent payments? I guess that's the only section that we haven't covered here yet. Is that pretty much tie in with the multi-sig and all the different account permission settings?
Yeah, any account can authorize any other account to withdraw up to a specified amount per unit time for a given window. So you could authorize your credit card to withdraw up to your maximum monthly payment, and they can automatically bill you. You can authorize your checking account to withdraw from your savings account, and then keep your savings account in cold storage unless you need to spend more than your daily spending limit. So the possibilities are endless. Recurring payments are a huge feature request, especially from those industries that depend upon subscription models and have high risk, high chargeback rates.
This is huge, yeah.
Please, everybody say it right now. 3, 2, 1. This is huge.
Well, congratulations to the dev team. This has been a remarkable effort, and I'm impressed that it was able to be kept under covers so well for so long on something so huge. Well done.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Everybody was worrying that you guys just were going out for drinks and not everybody, but I did hear people on the forums or read people on the forums saying, what's going on with the GitHub? So this is what was going on with GitHub to everybody who's listening. They were working on rebuilding the already amazing platform to make it super amazing and maybe far larger than that.
I can say that I was extremely worried that we'd have this announcement and everyone would be like, that's it, no time travel, and everyone would dump.
Well, time travel's in the future. I'm sure you guys can work on that later. We're not going to ask too much of you now, Bytemaster. All right.
Where do you think all the technology came from?
Mind blown. I do want to ask one more question now, just to kind of like simmer things down a little bit and bite into the positive here. There is a recurring theme that people are asking about the roadmap. Is there a roadmap that is coming? Is it something that you feel that should be done? Is there a reason for not having a roadmap? Where do you stand on the roadmap? And is it a finalized statement?
We have a roadmap currently published on the website. I don't know if it's as detailed as you all would like, but I can go through it right now. So the roadmap is basically to get us through to the release of BitShares 2.0. So today is the start of it. We announced what we're doing. We're going to have community review the features, request modifications, implement those modifications, and then we're going to have a feature freeze. After we have the feature freeze, then there's going to be, we're going to do full test coverage, which means writing unit tests that cover every line of code, or at least 95% of the lines of code. Some code is just there for paranoid things that should never happen, and it's really hard to even construct a test case for. Then after we've got all the test coverage in there and we're sure that every feature is working, we're going to have a public test network. And this is where we're really going to be testing the user interface and make sure all that stuff works. We're going to fix all those bugs in the public testnet. And once all those bugs are fixed, we're going to announce the snapshot date. And we're going to give 30 days notice. During that 30 days, we're going to prepare and test all of the migration tools for doing the snapshot and launching so that we can do it in 24 hours. Then we're upgrading to BitShares 2.0. After we've completed the upgrade, Cryptonomics will be submitting a number of different proposals. We know what these proposals are. We haven't published them yet just because there's already too much information out there for one day. For features we'd like to add to BitShares 2.0, and then the stakeholders will vote on which feature gets funded first. We'll work on that feature, go through a similar process, one at a time from there on out. So anyone can propose things, document it, get it approved, get it funded, then it will happen. So we're trying not to direct the future of BitShares, but the roadmap is a sequence of events, and we're not trying to rush this. We all want BitShares 2.0 to be upgraded today, but I think it's more important that the upgrade go smoothly and that it works the first time. I want to set a new expectation from the community and our users that our stuff just works rather than our stuff has lots of bugs and so on and so forth. We are so far ahead. We've been talking with lots of advisors and everyone, and the conclusion is we're so far ahead on a technology front that we need to slow down and start executing on the marketing user experience stability. We don't need to rush to have a million new features. We don't need to rush to get the features we have announced today out there because we are so far ahead. So we're going to take our time. We're going to do this right. I think most of this roadmap can be addressed this summer because we have most of the tests, most of the code already written. We've really thought through everything here, so there's not going to be a lot of big surprises between now and then. That's the rough roadmap that will get you through the next several months. And from there, it's going to be in your hands.
Well, this has been an awesome special event. I would like to leave it open for questions. We have asked a lot of them, and we're actually running about 20 minutes over. So I'll leave it up to Bytemaster. Do you want to keep on going, or do you feel like we've covered enough today and spent enough time? Please just let us know where you stand, and then we can go from there.
How is the voting secret source going?
Adam is working with us every single day. We've been designing BitShares 2 with vote in mind. The secret sauce of vote is primarily identity verification on a blockchain. And that's coming along really well. We've got a lot of solid connections with the Pirate Party in various countries. Things are really progressing well on that front. BitShares is going to be the primary platform for all of the identity web of trust required for voting.
Somebody just asked a question about the venture capital funding, or how your new company is going to be funded. I presume consulting fees will be a large part of that, but was there an initial inflow of capital to kind of get you off on that tangent, or on that path?
Yes, there's been a commitment of capital to get the company bootstrapped.
Was that private, or was that a venture capital firm?
Several private individuals.
Okay, thanks.
All VC money is American.
Oh, well, this actually brings up a question that's been on my mind. I don't know if I should ask it here or not, but seeing as Play was another group, and Notes, of course, BitShares Music, have share dropped on our community. I guess this isn't a bad place to ask it. Are you aware of whether Play or BitShares Music will be integrating BitShares 2.0 technology on their own separate chains, if they're going to be integrating with BitShares? Do you talk to them at all?
I can't comment on those particular blockchains.
Meaning you don't know, or we need to reach out to them?
I don't know what their strategy is at this point in time. I am, of course, encouraging everyone to adopt BitShares.
Sure. All right. Well, with that said, I'll ask one more time. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying I'm pleasantly surprised that a lot of people feel we've exceeded the hype, which I thought I was significantly worried that we would let everyone down.
I honestly, after seeing what you guys have been working on, there's nothing in my mind personally that makes me feel that way, because I mean, quite literally everything, every change, even in the places like the referral system where I was initially a little bit concerned, you seemed, what your team has done is magnificent. So I'll just give props where I think it's due. And
there was a turning point in this mumble session with, I think it was right about the time I lost the power here, and I feel like I missed the turning point. I mean, I saw the crowd change their attitude, and everybody was giving plus 5%, et cetera, lots of rave reviews, rave things, but I'm not sure I quite caught what the crucial element was that everybody said that is huge, and what that incentive was that people were raving about. Could somebody fill me in, please?
It was about the time, Tom, when we were discussing the ability to short pretty much any asset with any other asset, and even short BTS with BTS.
You can short something with itself. That's interesting.
Well, you can't short BTS with BTS. You can short BTS with BitUSD as collateral.
But BitUSD is, of course, backed by a BTS. So, at any rate, I'm not one of the fastest when it comes to these economic concepts. So I will take this offline and ruminate on it before I bother you guys with all the issues here. But I'm glad to see that people with more smarts about it than I am think that it's a great idea and it's a big thing. So great.
I want to really point out that the dev team has been incredibly committed to making all this happen, and sacrificed a lot to stay with the project during these times. They have been committing a lot of sweat equity to make this all possible. So they are really investing in the future of BitShares and the platform. And they are not, I can't think of enough. This wouldn't have been possible without them. There has been well over 20 people actively working on various parts of Graphene to make this all possible. Some people asked about the license. The software will be licensed by Cryptonomics for use. Cryptonomics will license the software for use with the BitShares blockchain only. We will also consider the others that have share dropped on the BitShares blockchain on a case-by-case basis if they want to work with us on it. So people like Play and Music would be qualifying for that.
Speaking of Play, I saw Toast post something or say something earlier, giving some kudos in the in Skype. What kind of a role has Toast played in the development of this new system?
Toast left around the time that we started development on it.
So he's off doing other things and not really a contributor to this particular output then?
Correct. Yeah, he was around when we were discussing some of our goals and some of the requirements early on. When we had our first proof of concept, he was around, but he's been working on music since then. He's been familiar with what we're doing, but he's been really pushing us to adopt the Ethereum VM inside this. But we've put off the virtual machine for a future version.
Well, I'll say this. Congratulations and thank you to all of the dev team who have put their blood, sweat, and tears into this. It hasn't been easy, I'm sure. And I also want to thank everybody from the community too, because you guys have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this as well. And we can't really. It would be a bad idea for us to overlook it, because a lot of you have had difficulties. But you've all recognized that perfection doesn't come over, at a moment's notice when we want it. That we actually need to expect there to be hard times and good times, right? And you guys have gone through the peaks and valleys together. And one of the things that makes the network effect so powerful is a core community that's able to do that. I always talk about roots that help a strong tree grow. And, when a tree can survive the storms, it's because the root system that has grown and strengthened it to do so. So it's been able to grow strong enough and get all the nutrients and everything it needs. And you guys really are some solid roots to what we're doing here in BitShares and the cryptocurrency movement in general. So I also want to kind of give you guys a shout out. Redscape says, would you be willing to release some version of Graphene as public domain, say 2 to 3 years down the line?
The developers have been building this technology, and we're going to monetize it for our benefits. We're giving it away free for BitShares. We're not. You can use it all you want for BitShares, no restrictions whatsoever. The BitShares community can grow and adapt it and do whatever they want with it. But we're really looking at ways that we can use the toolkit to generate income and to fund the development of features. And of course, BitShares can use any of the features we develop free of charge. But there's a lot of applications of blockchain technology in the corporate world, and we'll license it to individuals that want to use the technology to build other blockchains as we see fit. And in this way, we can ensure that the development team and investors that want to continue to support what we are doing can continue to fund this. So, what's the jurisdiction that crypto economics is incorporated in? So Delaware.
And is there any concern on your parts, of the team's parts, with regard to the heavy hand of the G-man coming down, because you're going to be licensing it, so you're going to have control of it to a certain degree? So was there any issues regarding legalities of that?
Yeah, this would be no different than the company behind the NASDAQ writing the actual software for it, licensing it to other exchanges. It's the operator of the software, not the developer of the software, who's liable for it. So we're working very hard to make sure that Cryptonomics is only a software company, and that's how we're going to focus.
I see. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing that I think I read. I think it would be very useful if this is true. BitShares account names are going to be transferable. Is that right?
That is correct.
Excellent.
So some people ask why we didn't incorporate overseas. The reason is because we all live in the United States, and having a fig leaf overseas would just complicate matters. And because we have developed a business model that ensures that we can continue to operate completely legally in the United States as a software company without any regulations applying to what we are doing. If there's ever any need for an overseas company, there's plenty of companies overseas that can license our software and run and operate it and share the revenue stream with us.
How about the social consensus? Will companies you license the graphene code to, will they ever share drop on BitShares?
We'll address that on a case-by-case basis. If it's I don't want to commit to anything in particular there, just because of business plans are flexible.
Okay.
But it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I want to point out that blockchain technology is fundamentally an open protocol. Anyone can write a library that, in another language, re-implement it from the ground up with all the lessons learned, and they can do whatever they want with it. So our only competitive edge is the fact that we've got it implemented already, and that's not much of an edge.
Especially when people can go look at the code right now.
Yes.
You guys have done some great things with respect to keeping it open source, but trying to protect our investors at the same, or donators at the same time. Really trying to, I'm sure it's been a tightrope walk that is very, very difficult not to fall off of that tightrope, or at least to catch yourself when you do. So I appreciate that personally, and seeing what you guys are doing. It's one of those difficult places, right? Like, the ideology that I hold generally is like, oh, open source everything. But the more that we've learned through this process, I think I don't speak just for myself, is that over time we've noticed that a lot of the great ideas that you guys have come up with have really been copied and mimicked. And it wasn't like it was a situation where they did so and said, this was thanks to the BitShares developers, we want to cite their work as the basis for our work. They haven't done any of those things that are common practice in these types of systems. So it's in terms of open knowledge systems. So it's very commendable, and I look forward to seeing where you guys move forward with that. And very interested to see where the share dropping thing goes too, because I'm very interested in the share dropping aspect.
Well, obviously, one of the most important things to for what we're trying to accomplish here is to have the software open source. So if we didn't do that, I would be much more concerned. But since we do still maintain the foundation of an open source community here, an open source software, then it's basically viral. It's going where it's going to go, and it's no one point of control because of that fact. And that's a very crucial point, that a lot of people that make things and are inventors actually try and keep too much of that for themselves, and that ends up being a point of control for people that don't want to have that technology get out in the wild.
Our primary concern is that BitShares is free and can evolve with or without us, and we do not want to retain any control over the direction that BitShares can go. We only wish to maintain control over the direction of everything else other than BitShares.
And that also goes back to the value of our community, right? Because a lot of our community, what I personally, the question that came up with me when we started talking about the share dropping initially, way back in the day when you guys started talking about share dropping, actually when you created share dropping in the form that it is, was that the community has to find some way of giving value to people who would want to share drop on us. And the community and the developers together, I mean, the developers are part of the community in their own way, right? But all the value that we collectively have been working to create over time, I feel over time is really going to give an incentive for people to want to share drop on us and utilize some of the great minds that have developed here, and the people who really understand BitShares and what BitShares powered means. So I want to thank you guys once again, because this is the stuff that we're doing here, and Bytemaster showing up every week to answer these questions, all you guys showing up to ask the questions and really being engaged. This stuff really makes a big difference. So anyway, I'll get off the soapbox. Well, do you think that, Bytemaster, do you want to continue answering questions, or can we maybe dig into this in a future hangout?
I'm fine continuing to answer questions. I figure you guys have been patient all this time. I can give you personal attention with all these answers here. So,
Well,
some people have asked the question about vesting balances. They'll continue to vest. Others have asked about dividends. A dividend feature would be a future feature. That would be one of those things we propose. The way that proposals will work in the future is Cryptonomics will estimate how much it's going to cost to design, build, and implement, provide a detailed spec, and a budget. And then we'll basically view the BitShares community as one of our customers for doing custom blockchain development. And you guys will figure out what makes the most sense. And then we're responsible for reliably estimating and pricing it and delivering it.
Bytemaster, I've got a kind of a general purpose question for you here. What, in the last 3 or 4 months since you've started this new effort to bring this to our to the wild here, what would you say was the most difficult aspect, the most difficult phase of that time period in terms of getting this thing accomplished?
When the share price was down at 8 million market cap.
Why was the share price a factor in the job you were doing?
Primarily because a lot of our funding was in BitShares. So, we were worried that the community would lose faith and it'd die before we had a chance to make this announcement today. But now that we're here, price is back on the right direction. You guys have still stayed with us. We're feeling better. That was the most difficult part emotionally, was knowing we have all this great stuff, knowing that, everyone should have a ton of incentive for staying with us, and having to keep it secret was really tough.
Well, I got to say, Dan, it sounds like you've had 1,000 pounds lifted off your shoulders. So I'm glad you guys stuck it out, and I'm glad we stuck it out as well.
Definitely. Old Depots is asking here, is there any transaction fees left where shareholders, after the new referral program, what percentage generally? It seems for at least 8 years, the total supply of BTS, that is, has no way to go down, just up. Is that correct?
20% of all transaction fees are burned. Burned is a synonym for being transferred to the reserve fund. And the ratio between what can go to the reserve fund and what gets paid to the referral program is a configurable parameter that can be changed by the stakeholders through a delegate proposal.
How do you see the political environment for the new DPoS system from the standpoint that it seems like the delegate role of the three is the most political? Do you see a difference, or do you see a change in political climate for how policies will be set and how things will change since there's more of a direct personal involvement, more politics involved directly than there are currently now? Right now, we have overlapping responsibilities, so the politics aren't as purely they're part of the mix, but they're not the only part of the mix. Whereas in the future, the delegate role in particular will have a very pure political aspect to it.
I think the politics will get a lot cleaner. Witnesses will be judged primarily on how neutral they can remain. They should have no platform other than being purely reliable and non-biased and including transactions. So they need to be trustworthy, unbribable individuals that just include transactions and don't do anything else. In fact, I think it'd be good for most witnesses to remain neutral in political discussion as a matter of policy. Now, that they're free to do whatever they like, but the more neutral they can be, the better for them and the better for everyone else.
Well, the merits of a witness, though, are really technically based. So, I mean, if a witness has, we all have biases. So, whether or not you vocalize those biases, I don't see how that really affects the witness role unless they start dropping or impacting their block production. Then, of course, it's going to have an impact.
Right. So they just have almost nothing to debate. They're either doing their job or not. The only thing that's going to be debated is, well, should person A get it or person B? It might be a popularity contest, or, people might be debating on the quality of their servers, the degree of physical security, their diversity of political jurisdiction. When it comes to workers, workers aren't going to be judged by whether or not they're producing feeds or producing blocks or any of those things. They're going to be judged based on what they're doing. And Cryptonomics is going to try to set an example of how proposals should be done in the future. A lot of the things that delegates are currently doing now are very subjective. All the marketing delegates. Is it working or not? Who knows? The referral program removes all those subjective things and says, well, if you acquire users, you make money. If you don't, you don't make money. Cut and dry. There's no longer any need to have marketing delegates or marketing workers because there's a direct monetization strategy that can link your success at acquiring users to your income. And as far as the delegate positions go, which these are the people that get to propose changes to the blockchain parameters, that will probably be as political as anything that happens in the Bitcoin Foundation. Sad to say. Should we increase the blockchain block size limit? Should we change the block interval? What should the transaction fees be? Should we increase or decrease the commission rates? Should we increase witness pay or decrease witness pay? All those things are going to be a political mess. But the delegates aren't paid, and they all have to agree in advance before any proposal can even be submitted for the stakeholders.
You mentioned, I think in the past, it was just a simple majority, 51% of the delegates had to be in agreement on a proposal before it is passed. Is that a correct recollection?
A weighted 51% based upon total shareholder approval.
Okay.
All right, so the delegates are on a dynamic multi-sig account that's always set to the set of users, the set of delegates that have been voted on by the users. But there's actually a lot of interesting things going on with the blockchain protocol now that are slightly different. And it's probably in the documentation, but you'll have a hard time finding it. So I'll just go over some of these more nuanced things. Votes are only tallied once per day, or once per maintenance interval versus on a continuous basis. Vote tallying ended up being a major performance bottleneck. Witness pay is constant. They all get the same pay for every block they produce. There's a special account. We call it the Genesis account. It's like all the other accounts, except for the fact that the authority, the set of accounts that, set and weight of accounts that have control of it, is set by how the stakeholders have voted for the delegates. It's that Genesis account that has the ability to publish a transaction that will change parameters. So it has to use all the multi-sig features in order to sign and approve the transaction. After they publish the transaction and it's approved by the delegates, it still has a 2-week waiting period until it actually takes effect, which means that if the delegates propose to change the fees or the block interval or do something in some manner that's very harmful to the network, the stakeholders can vote them out within 2 weeks and the change won't go into effect because the authority will have changed on the Genesis account, and therefore the transaction will no longer be valid. So that's some of the things there. Let's see here. All assets now have a fee pool that allows you to use them to pay fees. The issuer of the asset can set the exchange rate that they'll convert their asset into BTS for the purpose of paying fees, which means that most users, if you're issuing an asset, you don't have to also give them BTS with which to pay fees. So each day, there's a nice little diagram that explains how money flows around, and you'll find that, I forget which page it's on, but if you look on the website, you'll find it. Each day, there is a daily budget that can be allocated and spent. That daily budget is first paid to pay the witnesses. If there's any money left over, it starts paying workers from the most approved until it runs out of money. Now, some of those workers might just send it back to the reserve pool, in which case there would be nothing paid. But so the total number of workers that get funded is based upon how much money we have available to spend and the order in which they're voted and approved. So you're guaranteed, the witnesses have guaranteed pay. It's guaranteed to be enough to cover their costs, time, money, and to make it a worthwhile position to be very reliable and run a good server. So we're trying to remove uncertainty. All transaction fees are deterministic. For each operation, you can just look at the operation and the current fee schedule and know exactly what you have to pay. No more, no less. It's not like BitShares currently or all the other altcoins where the block producers have some kind of auction where, there's a variable delay until your transaction gets included. Predictability is required. You need to know that when you create this transaction that it will go through. And because fees can only change on the maintenance intervals, you can produce a transaction and know its fee's good and have very low likelihood of it being a bad transaction. The other thing we've done is we've changed the semantics on all of the transactions. So all the operations that actually go into the transaction, they're completely new. So we've done it so in such a way that it's now a deterministic interpretation of the transaction. If you look at a Bitcoin transaction or a BitShares transaction, it's hard to say, what is the meaning of this transaction? How do I display it to the user? Who transferred money to whom? Who paid what fee? All those things are now deterministic just by looking at the transaction. There's no more state information that's not in the transaction that is implied by the current state of the blockchain. What do I mean by that? In BitShares, you don't know what the yield you're going to collect is on a transaction until it's included in the blockchain, until it's actually processed. Which means that when you're trying to build a wallet that's trying to display to users what happened, you've got to log all kinds of extra information. We make it now so all information is explicit in the transaction itself, which means it's a lot easier. You can view a transaction history and calculate your balance entirely just from the set of transactions that apply to your account. And you can determine the transactions that apply to your account just by looking at the transactions without having to refer to blockchain state. There's other subtleties in here. We now have the reintroduction of transaction as proof of stake. All transactions specify the hash of a recent block or part of the hash of a recent block and an expiration time from that hash. This is to ensure that all the IDs that you're referencing in your transaction are referring to a valid state, but has the double impact of users are slowly confirming the global state in addition to what the witnesses are doing. So transactions as proof of stake makes a return. And we've designed the system to support cold wallets and hardware wallets that can construct and sign a transaction without having to refer to the blockchain at all. And that will be a huge benefit. So those are some of the random nuggets of information that might be hard to find.
I have a question about the API, Bytemaster. Is the API documented any differently or better than the 1.0 or than the previous API was?
We have better Doxygen documentation than we've ever had before. Orders of magnitude better.
Okay, so being able to migrate our existing tool sets over, for example, shouldn't be any problem at all compared to what we had to go through the first time.
That's correct. And the serialization tools, like JavaScript, that's all deterministic. There's no more guessing how to serialize things. And if we need to support new languages, we can easily create tools that will handle all the binary serialization of all the transactions in different languages.
Now we're using a WebSockets interface. That'll be one of the first areas I'll look into. So is that something that pretty much every interaction with the hosting platform or the delegate platform will be going through the WebSockets interface from now on?
That is correct. We also have backward compatibility for straight JSON RPC requests, but you'll probably want to use the WebSockets so you can get push notifications. You can subscribe to updates of any object in the, all the objects that we're talking about, accounts, keys, assets. They're all unique objects, and you can subscribe to them and get notified when they change. You can also get subscription to notify when you receive new transactions for a particular account.
Now, the WebSockets interface is nothing more than a physical layer interface or a protocol level interface, so you're pretty much just passing JSON objects back and forth through that interface, right?
Correct.
Well, first off, Permi asks, will Trezor wallets be compatible? And for those who are unfamiliar with Trezor wallets, or Trezor, I don't know how you say it, it's Trezors. They are hardware wallets that essentially add another layer of security for the end user. So with that said,
I don't know how they work, so all I know is we're using the same private key infrastructure as Bitcoin. I don't know what requirements they have for deciding what to display for validating transactions.
Gotcha. And Mr. Big, then on to his question. The future product of Cryptomex or Cryptonomex is quote unquote independent, or is it going to be 10% stocks to BitShares holders?
It could be either. We're reserving all rights.
So it's entirely possible that Cryptonomex might couple themselves or work in partnerships with some bigger companies who dilute and create new shares on the blockchain, or coupon type of user issued assets or something like that.
As large holders of BitShares, we have no intention of supporting products that would compete directly with BitShares, but in markets that BitShares cannot compete in.
MethodX has been asking this question a couple times, and I really did want to ask it for him. But he asks here if there is a comparison that you can make right now to Graphene and BitShares 2.0 compared to Ethereum in terms of the use cases.
In Graphene, we call it a smart contract platform, where all smart contracts have to be approved by the stakeholders, whereas Ethereum is a smart contract platform where anyone can write anything at any time. I'd say that's the primary difference. Sorry, I just got bit by an ant.
Nice.
I felt something on my arm that was bothering me.
Rolling live, baby.
There's a big difference I addressed in the performance of a system where you design it. When you design for particular high use, high volume smart contracts or generic contracts that can be parameterized, you can get a lot of performance gains. When you try to put the same thing in a virtual machine, the maximum throughput of your system falls dramatically. So I'd say the primary use case of Ethereum right now is to handle all the low volume, long tail of special purpose smart contracts. But in my opinion, the cost of developing a smart contract is very high. And if you can pay to develop a smart contract and have intents on being able to monetize it, you should propose it to the BitShare stakeholders. And if it's going to be high enough volume that you can monetize it, they'll probably approve it into the blockchain itself. And it'll have a far better user experience, far better performance. That said, BitShares 2.0 has been designed with the foresight of making smart contracts possible. And we're very happy with our designs for smart contracts. Now we've got it all designed and we know exactly how it's going to plug in, with the exception of picking which virtual machine to use for executing the various opcodes. What we want to do is focus on a virtual machine that would be easily optimized down into x86 assembly so it can have high performance. I think these interpretive blockchain virtual machines are not scalable. They'd have to have very, very high transaction fees because of the performance impact they would have on the system. So, and like I said earlier, the virtual machine should not be doing cryptographic operations in any circumstance. And this is where we've got good designs. One of the things we'll do is we'll create a proposal and an estimated cost for developing it and implementing it on the BitShares blockchain. And that's one of the things we will release shortly after BitShares 2.0 goes live.
In the background, we've been talking a little bit regarding Ethereum. And one person jokingly made the comment that those people who are working with Ethereum currently might find themselves wanting to also work with BitShares or maybe move over to BitShares. Do you see partnership opportunities or any places where Ethereum might gain from utilizing certain features or certain aspects of the BitShares ecosystem?
Well, like I said, hosts and I have been talking a lot about the potential of using the Ethereum virtual machine inside the Graphene consensus and wider protocol. But it won't be a perfect match, and I think there'll be a lot of issues there. It'll be very interesting to see how the various projects respond and adopt to what we're doing. I think a lot of them will probably start trying to look at some of the design trade-offs we made. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And for those who've been in the past, yourself and Vitalik have spoken together. You get along, it seems like, at least from standing back and watching it. So it will be very interesting to see where everything moves forward. Permi asks a question here. Are there any crypto news site interviews lined up for this announcement?
I've already done an interview with Adam B. Levine. Let's Talk Bitcoin. I'll be preparing an article for release on their blog. There's a BitShares TV episode in the works.
Awesome.
And several other things.
With regard to the philosophical foundations of BitShares and the difficulty that it must have been for you to deal with the whole departing away from Titan and the difficulties that had technically, you've said in the past and you reiterated in this mumble that you aren't forgetting and turning your back on the idea of privacy. But could you speak to the issue of the philosophy and whether or not you feel that now that the cat will be out of the bag, so to speak, where there won't be privacy? Everything is very, very public. I mean, it's a blockchain, so it should be public, I guess. But how do you have a combination? How can you put forth a position of protecting privacy as well as being a public blockchain? I had a guy ask me the question recently, how could you have anonymity and privacy in the same thing conceptually?
I've got an answer for that, but I can't share it right now.
Could you tell us why you can't share it?
Future product plans.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So this brings up another question, actually. What percentage of these mind-blowing things that you've talked about does this cover out of all of the things that you would like to talk about? I mean, that you have in your little bag of tricks, so to speak?
Yeah, what are you holding in reserve, Bytemaster?
There's no standard unit of account to calculate a percentage, but we've got a lot of tricks up our sleeves over the course of the next year, so be on the lookout.
So will we be able to have access to the time machine to be able to see into the future what you are going to pull out of the hat later on? That would make for some great hangouts on my part.
I'll have to check with Marty on that.
Permi says, could Met Exchange, like mixing service, allow BTS users to anonymize coins? And I would imagine that would be the case. Would be yes.
Yes,
right, Master. So this is entirely possible. So there are and this actually harkens back to what you've talked about in the past, where you've pretty much stayed on track with this idea or line of thinking, which is that third parties are going to come in and build a lot of what the market expects and wants, and that people who want privacy or anonymity will have services that will likely be built in jurisdictions that are capable of allowing it, right? And it also seems like the big changes that when you guys were talking about, we will still have some of the same issues that Bitcoin has regarding, changing or hard forking in any significant ways. But I'd like to just put in a commentary there that the foundation is far more solid, at least from my perspective, that we're starting from. So I just don't see any changes being quite as big of a deal as it is in the Bitcoin ecosystem at present. But I don't want to bash on Bitcoin or seem like I'm bashing on them.
What will be the final throwing of the switch, Bytemaster, with regard to cryptonomics no longer having any control or say? Right? You said that there's going to be some period of time that the dev team will retain a certain level of control until some point in time in the future where they will have no control over what happens. It'll all become part of the process of the the public consensus and the delegates and the schemes that that have been set up here. What will be the final element of throwing the switch?
When the stakeholders vote in new delegates to replace our influence over the fee structure of the blockchain, that would be the final say. But we don't want to run any witness nodes, and we don't want to, our relationship with BitShares wants to be limited only to paid worker to do work on enhancing and building BitShares at your direct direction. And that's probably how it's going to evolve. All future hard forks are going to be contingent upon stakeholder approval of one form or another. So we might implement something, but that doesn't mean that it's going to take effect. We won't implement any hard forks for BitShares that don't depend on it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That sounds good.
The new code has been released, so you can start playing with it today. We were hoping to have a live demo test network out for today, but you know how development goes. Our goal is to have a live test network sometime within the next week or two, once we can nail down. So we had some last minute changes to the referral program that we want to get in there.
And we've talked about those last changes, or no?
Yeah, we've already talked about it. We added the subscription role versus just the lifetime member.
And I'll tell you, at first I was concerned about the referral system, but the way you guys have done it has really opened up a lot of avenues that I've seen, at least for a lot of these different platforms that are coming into the BitShares ecosystem that I'm talking to behind the scenes. It offers, for instance, somebody like Amazon the ability to say, hey, go ahead and download the BitShares wallet, or you can use our own interface and you can set up your wallet through us, and then you get a specific, like a slight discount. There's many business models that can be created off of this, especially if the people already have a lot of users.
Has Overstock been approached with this new BitShares 2.0?
I don't want to talk about partnership deals.
XIS. What is the Sybil TAC related to referral program? What did you discover?
If we allow someone to, the reason why we added vesting is someone could create a faucet that would immediately allow you to sign up, get a lifetime membership, and give you $80 back immediately, which means that would undermine everyone else who's depending upon the referral program, because that person says, well, I don't need any commission, so I'll just do it for free, and that basically would undermine the entire system.
That's a good point. And what's interesting to me, at least throughout this process, is recognizing and learning just how iterative the entire thing is. There are a lot of issues that come up that people never expected, and dealing with them, you guys are always really agile in your development and being able to deal with things as they come up and try to engineer to solve the problems. So it's very interesting to see. Do you foresee this being like final hard fork type of version that you guys would be working on, or do you think that there's a potential for even future improvements that will require something like a share drop in a new, gosh, who knows at that point in time, 100,000 lines of code, Or do you think that we're pretty much at the foundation that you guys have been trying to build all along?
We like to avoid disruptive changes like the one we're doing, but we had to decide whether to continue to build on a shaky foundation or to lay a foundation for a longer term success. So we are really aiming for a longer term graceful upgrade, and we think we have a design that will support a longer time horizon, but we don't want to be like Microsoft that supports backwards compatibility forever. We want to be like Apple that recognizes when things are changing and be willing to upgrade to OS X.
Well, that's pretty awesome that you put this together in such a short order, but how much of the code base was ported over, or was it zero? And if it was zero, I presume that you certainly learned an awful lot from producing the first version in what went into the second one.
The only code that we're using from the first one is the network code. for doing the peer-to-peer communication.
Not even the JavaScript code that was worked out fairly recently for being able to encrypt things on the client side?
We've completely redone all of the JavaScript code to leverage code generation, so there's less opportunity for errors between the two implementations.
Oh, I see. Well, that's cool. It's amazing achievement. There's no doubt about that.
If I'm running an exchange, and this is off of what Tom was talking about, but now that we're into an area where we're just asking a lot of different questions that come up to us, if I'm an exchange with the current changes,
like
would it
Bitter,
be
you mean?
easier? Would it be easier to add BitShares and accommodate it than it was with the first version? Or do you see it being more difficult or the same?
Sorry, you cut out there again. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If I'm an exchange, will the new version of BitShares be more easily supported? Will it be kind of the same in terms of the workload, or will it be more difficult?
Yeah, it should be easier for exchanges. The exchanges will be lighter weight. The transactions will be easier to interpret. And with the notification system and WebSockets, should really help them out a lot.
And if I'm an exchange and you were to tell me why they should start supporting our platform, what would you tell them?
The value proposition for adding BitShares is that we allow you to maintain your current business model, charging the fees that you charge today by issuing your assets onto the BitShares blockchain, like a gateway. And every time you migrate your users to use our blockchain, you also get all the referral commissions of the BitShares network, plus you get the combined network effect of having your assets trade against all of the other assets. So the incentive is to join and share the network effect with everyone else, minimize your liability by only having to have one side of the order book, the fiat side or the altcoin side, and not have to have the BitShares side of the order book in your private keys.
They can get profits. They can get a higher degree of profit, a higher percentage of profits with adopting BitShares than they can from any other altcoin, or for any coin for that matter, right?
Yes, we are going to be producing an exchange in a box, a website that any exchange can deploy. It'll be a front-end wallet for BitShares that will allow them to promote their user-issued assets as the primary means of depositing into the system. That exchange in the box interface will allow exchanges to completely outsource most of their UI development and technical support and focus on two things: banking relationships and trust. And they won't have to deal with the technical aspects. So, plus with the BitShares accounts and our multi-sig infrastructure, their funds can be more secure than ever.
Is there any possibility that the UI for the new BitShares will be able to incorporate coins from other ecosystems? In other words, a multi-wallet or not?
I think that's in the realm of what Talon's working on, isn't it, BM?
Anything's possible. It's just a web wallet with JavaScript. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of plugins develop.
Surprisingly, Crypto Prometheus has been very quiet, and it's ironic because on the message board I posted how he's one of the only people I know who can talk as long as I can. Indefinitely.
So it's actually kind of funny here. I've had a list of questions for this entire session, and just about as I was about to ask each one, they were answered, like 4 in a row. So I guess I thought I should just keep my mouth shut and be patient. But no, Bytemaster, I wanted to ask you: have you ever, or have you made any progress and put any money down on BitShares Island yet?
I'm not selling one BitShare until they appreciate more.
Here.
All right, guys. It's been great talking with you. It's great to see so many people show up in the Mumble. We are really looking forward to getting all this stuff rolled out and, continue to provide feedback and spread the word.
Thanks, Bytemaster.
Thanks, BM. Have a good evening.
Thanks a lot, Bytemaster.
Yeah, thank you, Bytemaster.